We fail to focus on the primary resource, which is ourselves. She didn't even have the time to take a sip of water. It makes absolutely no sense to compare yourself with someone else. I felt very depleted and overwhelmed. He said, I know that you're good at this, but I don't want to be the only one seeing this. It is officially halfway through the year, and if I'm being completely honest, I cannot believe that 6 months have flown by already. I mean, I feel like I just wrote my New Year's resolutions like last week. But in all reality, I haven't hit most of them. So if you're watching this and you feel a little bit behind, I want you to take a deep breath and understand that you are not alone by any means. And this is why mid-year check-ins are important, right? I want us to talk about the mid-year reset a little bit differently. Most of the time we hear about, grinding harder and really reaching for those goals that we've set since the start of the year. But if you're an ambitious introvert or a quiet achiever watching this video, you don't need a lecture of hustling more, right? You need something that helps you understand how to get your capacity in check, your energy in check for the rest of the year. And so that's what this video is going to be about. We're going to be mapping out a practical reset plan that will really be touching on 4 main points on how to recharge your personal and professional ambitions, how to protect your peace, and how to let go of all of the noise as we move into the next half of the year. So the first thing you need to do is a capacity audit. Look, we need to stop looking at our endless list of things to do and start looking at our actual human bandwidth. As introverts, hard work and working in general is not what stresses us out. What drains us is constant overstimulation, back-to-back meetings, and not leaving any time to recharge, any time to recover. I was talking to someone the other day and she was telling me how busy the day before had been. She had back-to-back meetings from morning until 5 p.m. that she didn't even have the time to take a sip of water. She couldn't take a sip of water because she was so busy. And she's someone who would call herself an introvert. She explained to me how that drained her. We talked about how that should not be a norm. It should not be something that we allow to happen. We should be able to schedule in rest times where we can recover and refresh so that we can be as efficient as possible. In the corporate world, we talk a lot about resource management, right? Managing time, managing our systems, but we fail to focus on the primary resource, which is ourselves. We need to stop treating ourselves like machines that never need maintenance. Once we start pushing ourselves past those limits over and over again, we're gonna start losing our peace and it's gonna start to show in the quality of the work that we do, and we don't want that. So this is your homework for this week, okay? I want you to look back at the past 6 months and ask yourself this: where am I overextending myself? And I think asking yourself that should trigger some thoughts that you can then walk through and see how you're spending your capacity and if it's actually worth it. Are you saying yes to projects just to please people and the projects don't necessarily serve you and your goals? Are you getting stuck in meetings where those meetings could be emails? And I don't want you to see this as an excuse to not get things done. The idea is to steward your time and your mind so that you can give your best energy to things that actually move you forward. Now, after you protect your baseline bandwidth, you now have to look into how you're actually spending the capacity that you're protecting. When you think about it, some of the goals that you've set 6 months ago might not even be serving you anymore. That's why it's important to look into how you want to spend your time, your energy, and your capacity moving forward. And so this step is where we assess for true alignment. At the start of the year, when we're putting together our list of things that we want to accomplish, we're doing so with sort of an idea of what we think success looks like. And even just going on LinkedIn and getting caught up in other people's highlight reels, their milestones, their accomplishments, which is amazing to celebrate. And I don't want any of you getting caught up with comparing yourself with anyone else, right? Comparison really is the thief of joy, right? And we all have different goals. We all have different aspirations. Our journeys are so different that it makes absolutely no sense to compare yourself with someone else. So just a side note there. But it's already half of the year, right? And so we have to ask ourselves the hard question of whether or not those things we wrote down earlier are actually in alignment with what we want. Were we right to put them on the list, or is it time to take them out? Are those things pushing us closer to our calling, or are we doing them because of some external pressure to prove that we're successful or pressure to please people? When there's a misalignment here, that friction is what causes us to burn out, right? Not necessarily the workload itself. I've personally experienced this as well, right? Earlier in the year, I feel like on paper, I looked like I was doing everything I needed to do professionally and really going for my ambitions. But internally, there was a lot of friction, and I felt very depleted and overwhelmed. And so I had to take a step back to make sure that what I was doing was aligned with where I needed to go. Now, I noticed that in passing, in feeling, but sometimes it's easy for us to overlook that over a long period of time. And by the time we realize it, we're already at the point of overwhelm. And we don't want that for ourselves. And so you need to take a look at your personal and professional roadmap right now, what you've set for yourself, and make sure it's not forced. It's not overly heavy or making you lose your peace of mind. If you notice something like that, saying no to it now is not necessarily failure. It's actually wise to keep yourself aligned for your own well-being and for the good of everything else that you'll be putting your energy to. Now, realigning your goals internally is one thing, but how do you actually stand up and own those goals outwardly? Say at work, for example, to make sure your hard work is recognized without necessarily changing yourself. I know that a major hurdle for ambitious introverts is not getting that visibility in the workplace. It's this idea that you want your work to show for itself. You want your project to be able to speak for themselves. But in all reality, we know that the workplace is not built that way. Your work isn't just going to speak for you while you stay silent. People simply will not know what you're able to do. And this reminds me of a pivotal moment in my own career where my manager sat me down to sort of explain to me how to think about this, right? He had worked with me enough time to know that I was good at my job. And he told me, he said, I know that you're good at this. I know how much value you bring to the team and how passionate you are about your work. But I don't want to be the only one seeing this. I want others to be able to experience you as well, to be able to see what you're capable of. Not just our internal team, but the teams outside of us that don't get to work with you day to day. And that flipped a switch for me because it was no longer about just wanting to show myself. It was showing my capability, showing what I could do and how I could be of value even outside of my internal team. What he was teaching me was a necessary part of my professional development. And that's how I want you to see this idea of visibility. I don't want you to see it as just being visible, as in being loud and out there performative, but how intentional you are about even the conversations that you have. When you're in a meeting, instead of staying silent and hoping that your work would speak for itself, you need to explain what you're doing, the problem that you're solving, how you're solving it, the different hurdles that you're passing through in order to get to the result that you're looking for, so that people can get into your mind and see how you think and how you might be able to help other projects as well. It could also mean using platforms like LinkedIn to show your expertise and put yourself in front of the right people that would actually help you move your career forward. Being visible doesn't mean that you have to pack your calendar full of things to do until it breaks, right? In order to make sure that you're doing this wisely throughout the rest of the year, you need to master something that I learned from a different part of my life. So outside of being an engineer, I'm also a poet. And something that you learn really quickly when writing poetry is that the poem isn't powerful because it has a lot of words packed into a page. It's actually powerful because of some of the deliberate space and gaps that you leave around the words, around the paragraphs. Those silent moments of the poems are what make them strong. And I see our personal and professional development in that same light. You can think of that space in your career or in your personal development as margin, right? Margin on your calendar when there's nothing to do, margin in terms of giving yourself time to reset and recharge, just empty space. I think it is true that real success doesn't come from doing a lot more things. You don't have to do more in order to be successful. It actually comes from removing the noise so that your ambitions, your goals, they actually have room to breathe and you have room to focus. So if your calendar is booked solid with things to do, then you have no time to think. You have no time to reflect on the things that you've actually done to make sure that they align. So I want you to go ahead and block out non-negotiable focus times where you say no to things that drain you without adding any value. And I don't want you to think of this as selfish at all. Like we talked about, this is just one way of stewarding your mind and your time so that you can give your best energy to the things that really matter. Those are the 4 points that I have for you today. I want you to remember that you can be highly visible, highly ambitious, and incredibly successful without losing your peace and without changing who you are as you go into the next half of the year. If this perspective helped you today, I want you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and also share the video with someone you think needs to slow down and reset. I also want to hear from you in the comments. Feel free to comment down below what habits or obligations you're planning to edit out of your routine as you go into the rest of the year so that you can create that margin for what you need to focus on. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.